Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Charlotte Street Pier number 3. This is our April edition. And thank you all for joining us on Facebook Live and in the Zoom. We all love our Zooms, so we're going to keep this one short. This idea is we do these in 30 minutes. It's super rapid fire. It's just a way for Charlotte Street to kind of share some of the art and the projects that are happening in Kansas City with some, the leading artists that are making some impact in Kansas City. Another idea of this is to make this a multi-generational conversation. So we invite artist that is emerging, one that is mid-career, and one that is established. And those are used pretty loosely because everyone's kind of at their own places. So I don't like to label too much, but we got to get some kind of grouping to get you all invited. So anyways, we have 3 artists tonight, Lynn Benson, and then we also have William Plummer and Ryan Tenney. All of them actually work with environment and researching water. Actually, I feel like is a good, appropriate thing with the rain out today. So we're going to get right into it with Lynn's. And right after the 3 of these presentations, we'll go right into a Q&A that you can ask on the comments or just unmute yourself. And but basically the artists will ask each other a few questions as well. So thank you all for being here. Hope, our lovely marketing organizer and controller, will be getting that started.
Hello, I'm very honored to be invited to share a bit about my work with you. Thank you, Pat Alexander and the awesome Charlotte Street Foundation for this opportunity. We've all spent our pandemic time in various isolated situations. For me, I've been at home, often in my sunny studio, and I've moved 3 separate bodies of work forward. You'll see that each revolves around world waters, my passion for many years. We'll peek at a collage series, a painting, and my mixed media project called Drops. This is an older experimental piece which inspired the pandemic theme called Orbs, as in strange, invisible, round things to be avoided. The background is an archival print, a detail photo taken across the surface of one of my oil paintings. The translucent drop depicts waters at the Strait of Hormuz. So this combining of the paper photo with a drop from another project led to the Orbs series. In this piece called Orbs Ubiquitous, I used various fragments of the photos shot across the surface of paintings. Every curvy cut edge that you see represents an actual place in the real world where water meets land. In this piece, the green shape in the left foreground is the confluence of the Potomac and Anacostia rivers at Washington, D.C., and the thinner green behind is the Kansas River. These ink on paper chunks and fragments have inspired several series, actually. In Orbs Exhale Landing, I overlapped pieces of obviously depleted Colorado River waters located near Yuma, Arizona. The source painting for the photos, called Against the Wind, Lower Colorado, depicts this location from satellite perspective. I took the angled photos of the botanical-looking river shapes before painting lightly over them to suggest the wind. The round orb in Exhale Landing depicts an actual lake with an island, but adapted well visually to portraying the act of exhaling. During our pandemic summer, I prepared for a 3-person show at the Salina Arts Center in central Kansas. This painting, Propagating Rivers, is one of the works that I completed for that exhibition. I've obviously offered rivers here as plant-like and certainly declared that the life of each river is tenuous. It's hard to see here that those rectangular pots that are nurturing the segments of rivers from around the world have a subtle gold and silver reflective surface. These are the rivers I selected for the piece. We're all learning that every river and body of water has a story to tell these days, too often about scarcity or pollution. Approximately 12 years ago, my artist statement mentioned wanting to be a part of the conversation as we face unprecedented challenges to our world waters into the future, close quote. I'm only now realizing that this is my first singular work to more directly address that thought. These parts and pieces supported the design process for Propagating Rivers. First came the printed Google Maps of select rivers, sized to my purposes. The map in the foreground is of the Ganges River in India. Notice that the nearest river in the mock-up above it is the Ganges segment incorporated into the layout. The clear bag lower left has tracings of all of the chosen rivers used in composing the layout, and the final design is covered with a grid for transferring. Lastly, I'll introduce you to my drops project by way of this photo setup representing my longtime goal to get professional photos of drops created to that date. This was November of 2020. Local photographer Max Wagner and his assistant spent 2 days shooting and cataloging, and I was handing off and approving over 500 drops in numerical sequence. This was possible only because of a patron's purchase of an oil painting, a huge boost, well-timed. The proofs were everything I had hoped for. Consistent images delicately reflect the light at the rim of the glass, and they can be enlarged considerably. Drops each represent a place in the world where water meets land, with a few surprises and exceptions, while hinting at water cycles, rain, and more. I've engraved each petri dish with a unique number corresponding to a catalog list with brief descriptions. One of my intentions for these photos was to set up an Instagram account dedicated to the project. Ta-da! I first made a few drops in 2012 during a period of severe drought in the Southwest. In 2016, they became drops in petri dishes and have now been in 4 exhibitions in 3 states in small number. They've become a diary of sorts, and I'm dedicated to continuing them into the future, so stay tuned, and thank you.
Are we off to the next one? Just give me one moment.
Hi everyone, my name's William Plummer and I'm a multimedia artist based here in Kansas City. I describe myself as an American and Taiwanese artist. My mother's side of the family comes from Taiwan, and when I find myself missing them, I often wander Google Maps around familiar places as a salve for that. And the series came along when I started discovering pictures of my family members on Google Maps. And I was really captivated by both this intimacy and incredible distance I felt looking at them through this nonchalant platform. These conversations of tensions between larger structures and things within them is something that's carried through my work. And a lot of this is also conveyed through fiber processes. I draw inspiration directly from personal experiences, including objects, places, and even things that are said, including this quote. This piece is incredibly personal because it is a reflection of a grieving process for my grandmother. And this was done through the image of joss paper, which is paper money burnt as an offering for recently deceased relatives or ancestors. Because I'm distant to the practice of burning joss paper, this was my way of setting aside time to communicate care for a loved one. In the center of that installation were 3 beaded pieces. Each of them is a distorted representation of joss paper, and through the process of beading, I've translated this object in a way that also makes it essentially unburnable and twisting that purpose while still retaining that sense of care and time. I think about structures, including language, and the way that language can shape our internal worlds, and the ways that we also embody language physically. This is a map converging the phonetic alphabet, the Mandarin phonetic alphabet, with the ABCs in order to show both the nuance that's lost, but the shared sounds between the 2 languages. From this chart, I then took those plots and cast them in paper. Atop this paper, I grew microgreens, which as they rooted, they broke through that paper and into the soil, unifying everything into a cohesive substrate and intuitively leaning towards the sun. And that sort of intuitive orienting is something that I am really fascinated with, which sort of leads to my collaboration. This was between myself and 3 other artists, Jason Paulin, Mal Muir, and Steph Nowotowski. And we worked within the Stowers Institute of Medical Research to do a deep dive on the planarian flatworm, which is studied for its incredibly regenerative properties. You can see here, this image is a stop call for Art in the Loop, so that's an image of it up. And what we are really thinking about here was bringing something that's actually quite immediate. These planaria flatworms can be found in Brush Creek, and showcasing them in the city. And the coloration is achieved by feeding these worms food coloring. So don't worry, no worms were harmed in the process. From this collaboration also grew a couple of video works from me, and these videos were really an investigation into the question of what does a lifetime mean when you're a small worm that can regenerate, clone itself, and is essentially immortal. And this video puts the viewer into the worm's time because it was a large-scale projection, completely immersing you with the worms. Another video came out of this collaboration, one of us dancing and truly just expressing the joy of connectivity through long, careful conversation. So, finding those connections. Thank you so much for your time today, and you can find more of my work at polywoid.com.
I really love that presentation. We're going to move on to Ryan's.
Hi, this is Ryan Tenney. I'm a returning generation farmer and artist, and this is what I've been up to during this pandemic. I have a collection of some video, like you see now, and images that I've been making over the past couple of years. I'm not going to talk through this whole thing. There's some audio pieces that I edited that I'm going to play. A little bit of Amiri Baraka, a little bit of Sadia Hartman, and a little bit of an upcoming event.
Inferno that killed 11 people and destroyed 61 homes.
You can call the group reactionists, revolutionaries, terrorists.
It's a documentary about this MOVE organization. It was an organization in Philadelphia that the city dropped a bomb on twice, killed 15 people, but the anniversary is coming up, May 13th. I'll be doing it again, May 13th. Yeah.
Small vocal minority among us seeks to destroy the heritage of 1776. We must be ever vigilant that this minority does not impose its philosophy on the unwilling majority of Americans.
In their vigilant effort to maintain close contact with Mother Earth, the MOVE members are breaking up the cement of the sidewalk around their property.
But you have to have some kind of standard for your organization here.
Yeah, life.
You just but you are not animals. I mean,
Why not?
I don't want to be personal.
Oh, no, wait a minute, why not?
See,
We are animals because our reference is no different than the reference of animal. There's only one reference, and that's life. That's what MOVE is about, life, truth.
I like to refuse the separation between art and politics in my work. My work is political. We're living in a historical moment.
We were being taught about this system, the corruption in this system, but mainly it was just the absolute truth.
What John Africa did was expose the lie in the system, uncover it.
Could you describe what you mean by the word the system, please?
the system, the establishment, you.
And to top it all off, you ain't through yet. Over 50 you have killed in Mississippi since 1963. That doesn't even begin all of those you have maimed.
And all the other lost lives to police violence in Kansas City.
My man, suddenly clearly an apologist for new style colonialism, telling us we can't fight in the U.S. Those centuries of our dead are buried here. Oceans of our blood have fertilized a black nation in the South. Is there someone here to get this down?
Industrial civilization. When Monsanto research facilities are blown up, their research files deleted, and every one of their employees is issued a personal apology to all of creation. When every mile of paved earth is released from bondage and every building of concrete and steel is dismantled. When every railroad car is pushed into retirement.
Steer clear of the merchants of death and the Richmond cannibals, a lament for your dead. And this loss and desire gave meaning to the words, we who become together. If after a year in Ghana I could still call myself an African American, it was because my Africa had its source in the commons created by fugitives and rebels, in the courage of suicidal girls aboard slave ships, and in the efforts thwarted and realized of revolutionaries intent upon stopping the clock and instituting a new order, even if it cost them their lives. For me, returning to the source didn't lead to the great courts and to the regalia of kings and queens. The legacy that I chose to claim was articulated in the ongoing struggle to escape, stand down, and defeat slavery in all of its myriad forms. It was the fugitive's legacy. It didn't require me to wait on bended knee for a great emancipator. It wasn't the dream of a White House, even if it was in Harlem, but of a free territory. It was a dream of autonomy rather than nationhood. It was the dream of an elsewhere with all its promises and dangers.
Thank you, Hope, for running all of those. And thank you to all the artists, Lynn Benson, William Plummer, and Ryan Tenney, for creating these and this fun time that we're in. Eventually, these will be, Pier will be in person, but trying to keep our community together and keep conversations going, we decided to do this through the Zoom. Again, I think it'd be great to hear from the artist. Maybe you guys have a little bit something you'd like to talk about, especially with the research of like the Google. I think is really interesting between the two of you, and and Ryan, just with what you're doing over at that garden as well. Lots of research. William, maybe you.
Yeah, it was like, I think that I'm fairly new to meeting both of your art practices. And I guess, Lynn, in particular, I was curious about what specifically draws you to that sort of threshold where water meets land. That's something I think I heard you mention a couple of times during the talk.
Thank you for asking. It's really come about in the process of just thinking about water. And do I need to click on anything, or I see you, William?
You're perfect.
Okay, I'll keep going. I'm not practiced with this. The land water is really a way, partly for me, to play with artistic visuals. It's partly a way for me to find something in my passion about water and how it's being compromised in so many ways, historically, but now more than ever. And as I was trying to find a way to do something with that visually a good long while back, I realized that through mapping, I could see visual things happening that totally intrigued me. when you get to a delta where, you know, where the water and the ocean, for instance, where the river and the ocean are meeting each other, there's a ton of life and important stuff that's happening there in terms of life of you know, organisms.
Mm.
And at the same time, there's so much visually to play with. And there are multiple other kinds of paths around the world. When you go to Google Maps, you can zoom in, you can pull back, you can sort of frame it as a designer and find something which on its own has value, but as a design. But I wanted to take off from that visually and play with it and integrate the politics and the stories behind it in various ways. So, yeah.
Mm.
Someone else mentioned that the politics, which obviously in Ryan's work, but it definitely comes through in Williams as well, of course. And each of us is sort of approaching that from a very different place. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ryan, what are your thoughts? Are you here still?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, cool.
You got me?
Yeah,
Okay.
we got you.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, I agree. It was. I mean, thanks, Pat, for you know, organizing it and getting us all together. And it was great to see that through line of ecological, and you know, of course, how, you know, how we relate to the ecological going through all of the presentations. And I mean, I think, like I said, and you know, I guess I try to integrate the political with, you know, the agricultural with the cultural, and so like you know, thinking from the position of the worm in Brush Creek, you know, is you know, is helps us, you know, frame our, you know, our politics around life and water. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so I think it was great.
Maybe talk a little bit about the May 13th. There was something mentioned about that.
Oh,
Ryan. I was curious if, I don't know if that's fully tied with that, but
well, so I did a film screening a couple of days ago on Mumia Abu Jamal's birthday. He's one of the political prisoners held in U.S. prisons. He's been in prison for 40 years now. His birthday was May 24th. And he's in prison because he was reporting on the MOVE organization, which the documentary I was screening details then. And for them, you know, water, you know, and all life, you kind of heard in the little clip, one of the MOVE members was being questioned about their organization's philosophy and direction. And his reply was life, you know. And similar, like, you know, water cycles, you know, what's interrupting these cycles is, you know, impositions against life. And it's also bad for humans too. I mean, unless you got like a helicopter and like, you know, 6 Teslas, but, you know, but yeah, so the documentary is talking about the MOVE organization and the attack at the police department in Philadelphia, May 13th, it's the anniversary. I mean, there's a lot more I can say about that.
Yeah. We're so short. We're going to keep it rapid tonight. That, again, the idea of this is to get some conversations going. Everyone's websites are in the links as well, so can continue those. I do think there's also a lot going on with collaboration, and I like that with the science, with the farmers and all that in your art practice. But that can also be a challenging thing, but also very, you know, inspiring at the same time. William, it sounded like yours was pretty sciencey.
Yeah, we were working primarily through Stowers, and I think that one of the most interesting parts of that project was finding ways to talk artistically about the worms while being very, very considerate of retaining like complete scientific accuracy and not having language lean in any way that might leave open interpretations and misinterpretations. So those conversations that can arise, I think also help to articulate specificity. Like they really pinpoint the importance of specificity.
That's awesome. Lynn, did you have anything you'd like to add about the new direction kind of in some of your work? It looked like it was like a bit of the Petri dishes. It looks like it's kind of grown into some more 3D objects.
Yes. And speaking of science, yeah, I like that it also has that science component. You know, when you see it, it's initially I was thinking of it, well, it's gone through many, many stages. It took a while for me to get to the Petri dish part of it. As I mentioned, I played with the drops for quite a while in a variety of different ways. But when the Petri dish concept came along, I realized that it frames the little drops and it protects them, and it also implies the scientific side of taking a sample of water somewhere, for instance, and knowing where it came from. In fact, I have a photograph of someone that I took when I was on a residency in Key West, and she's actually got a Petri dish and a dropper, and is, you know, pretending to put a drop into the Petri dish. So I've got that sort of link that I will use at some point. But it's a way of crossing a lot of different disciplines, and I like doing that in my work. But as you all do too. But into the future, I really am treating it a lot as a diary. I am a news junkie and am finding continual news items, political also, very much so, in terms of, you know, the Clean Water Act and the EPA and all kinds of things that are happening. American Rivers just announced their most endangered rivers for, you know, the year. And so I bring it all together as I'm continuing to do more of the drops. And I have some sense of where it's going, but that I'm going to leave unsaid right now. But it's going to keep going.
Keep it up. Ryan, what else do you want to share with us? You've got, I love, how can people find out about the farm? I feel like there's a lot of interesting collaborations and things going on, but maybe you're also producing crops that are available. Is that a thing?
Yeah. So the farm is called Sankara Farm, and the website is sankarafarm.com. And I do a CSA, and folks can find information on that on the website. We got a couple of grants. I wrote a couple of grants over the winter. So we got a USDA's Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education grant, and then Governor Parsons threw me some money. Missouri Department of Agriculture, and for food sovereignty and sustainable agriculture education projects. So there's information about that on the website. And the volunteers are always welcome. We're building a greenhouse. It takes like 3 people to get these hoops up. I mean, that's one of the things that the pandemic showed, I think, most people, that you need a steady supply of toilet paper and food, and one of those things you can get by going outside and planting stuff. So that's, I mean, this transplants and seeds, but also folks can get produce. And I'm in the farm is in Kansas City. We're South KC, kind of the edge of urban development, so it feels pretty rural out here.
Love it. Yeah, I think the 3 of you need to do a greenhouse workshop. We'll construct and learn more. Well, thank you all. This goes so fast. Like I said, this is just a way to glimpse in and find out what some of you all are doing, and keep up the great work. Congrats on the grants, the research, the new projects. It's refreshing. I need food TP and art in my life to keep going. So thank you all for that. Everyone check out their websites. This will also be recorded and be posted on our YouTube channel as well as each peer. And we hope to see you next month. So have a great night. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.